although I expected something good, but this is beyond good. So, and you know, it's like I found my tribe, like the whole crew X folks are just so amazing.
First of all, let me just like introduce the crowd a little bit. For if you don't know, my name is Romulo. I'm a Hyper Island learning designer. I work at Hyper Island, but I'm also an ex-student of Hyper Island. So I did the master's, I think 5 years ago, maybe more. I don't remember, but it was a while ago. And if you're watching this for the first time, this is a series of videos that we're doing with our current master's students to share a little bit of their experiences and their tips and their advice to anyone who's either willing to join at Hyper Island or is going through that process of, you know, figuring out what is there for me, what's there for me to do in life. And those videos is to share a little bit of how different people at Hyper Island are experiencing and growing in that process. So there's a second video that if you want to watch, maybe we'll put here on top in the description. But today I have with me June, Kleinda, Fatin, Miguel, and Safia, which is they're currently studying at Hyper Island. They're our current students of Hyper Island, Crew X, which is our 10th crew, meaning it's been 10 years that we're running this program in Singapore. So they are like the Crew X, right? Like I think it was the biggest crew that Hyper Island has ever had in history. Like it's about 80 people that are going through this journey with us. And I'm very excited to see you all. First of all, because I remember I met you in your first class, right? Like when we facilitated the Hyper Island Way Week, I was there as a main facilitator of that module. And then I met you there and I remember all your faces arriving completely lost, like, okay, what's gonna happen here? Why you guys are like, and I remember we completely, in 4 days, the energy has completely changed from people who barely knew each other to friends and you know, like an energy that was completely different than the one we started, which was actually my brief. And now it's been what, 9 months since you first started, and for sure it wasn't an easy period for anyone, right? Like it's just gonna be reopening, and you know, sometimes we go online, sometimes we go face to face in groups of 3, groups of 5. So it's been quite chaotic. Maybe my first question is very simple, like what have you learned in the past year?
I guess before I come to Hyper Island and all those things, right? I mean, I thought it's just going to be another master degree and that sort of thing. I want to meet like other, you know, students. I guess the thing about it is that Hyper Island have taught all of us to dig deeper and not just question M-level thinking. It question everything, and then, you know, like not just, you know, like just scratch the surface and all those things, and which is very often at work, and we are, you know, always the timeline is always yesterday, right? And then, you know, customer is always chasing you and stuff like that, so you need to have like solution now, you know, and that sort of thing. So it is something that very refreshing, and it kind of prompt you to be a much more deeper thinker. And then I love it when, you know, like you get all the other, you know, fellow classmates, and then you guys just you know, like throw questions on one another, and then you like help each other to, you know, dig deeper and deeper. And yeah, it's amazing. And yeah, and I learned to trust the process, I guess. So that's me. Nice. Okay, that's my 2 minutes.
Thanks,
over to
Clyde.
You guys.
So my biggest learning, I would say, it's to invest in myself. I always had this narrative about myself that I am a certain type of person because I was from a science background. I need to be in a science field. My love is for the ocean. So if I want to do conservation, I need to be in a PhD track, which I'm not. And then I've always loved art, you know, in terms of design and art, but I never kind of venture into it because I was not from an arts background. I wasn't from a communication background. So for me, this master's was a leap to invest in myself, to see that there are different aspects of yourself that you never know, and you are not limited by the merits that you have in life in terms of a degree or whatsoever. And I think throughout the whole process with the crew, I learned a lot about myself, different aspects of myself, like throwing the party when I was first session. I didn't know I had that in me. Working with different people, coming up with like amazing projects that I never thought I could, figuring out that I could write, things like that. So this whole thing for me, the takeaway is that investing in yourself and be open to learn about yourself and not judge yourself based on the narratives that you're being taught in your life. Yeah, so to me, that was that.
And it reflects the power of investing on yourself,
Yeah.
right? Like, and taking the
Yeah.
time to do that. Thank you for sharing that,
Right.
Fatin.
Yeah.
Miguel, I know, so if people don't know Miguel, Miguel is our remotee student. He is in the Philippines, right, Miguel? And and he's one of those that really, 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 I mean, deserve the fact that he put some effort into it.
I think the biggest learning I've had in the class is how I've gained a new way of looking at the world. I have been coming from a journey of reinvention because I was born into an advertising world. My father owned an advertising agency, and my brother and I were in advertising. And 15 years ago, we realized we're in a sunset industry and we're becoming the very dinosaurs that we were assigned to sometimes get rid of in our different assignments. And here we are facing our very bread and butter, and we are about to become dinosaurs. He went on to join client side. I went on to join broadcast, but never got that confidence to really know and be confident about the digital world. In the last 9 months, I have discovered a way to look at the world in that I don't have to understand everything. I got to understand enough to realize I have to keep learning, to realize also that everybody is learning, but we just get bits and pieces of what you're supposed to understand, then rely also on other people. I also realized a very strange part of my life that I've always wanted to grow up to be like my father, who was the boss. And he could just do everything and he would just act so smart. But I realized, especially in the teaming, that in modern teams, I can have a nice position, but I'm acting like a manager. And I've learned to accept that, especially now I'm in a new company, it's very big. But my ego doesn't get affected if I'm just a coordinator in one or expected to do analytics in another team or expected to be the voice of wisdom in another part. For me, it all came and I'm in a new phase of reinvention and that's what I've enjoyed.
It happened to me also. It's almost like, how do you forget the labels that the corporate world is trying to put on you? In my case, I was a creative director for an agency for 5 years, right? And then I was just like, that you have that role and you look for other people who do the same work and you imagine, oh my God, I need to dress like this, I need to act a specific way. That's what's required out of me. But that's not who I am. I think that's the point, right? How can you find your fit and grow? Actually, that's where growth comes, right? By just finding what you like doing and who you are as a person. I think that's very powerful. Thank you, Miguel. Safia?
I'm Safia. I mainly do copy and content, and I've been working at various startups since I started working. So I'll talk about the team part first. I think the module on teams and leadership, that was the most uncomfortable module for me. I remember being very very uneasy, and I was just reflecting after the module ended, like, why was I feeling this way? And it's because I never really thought that I could ever be a leader, and the kind of things that we went, the kind of lessons that we went through, it really made us look into ourselves and learn that the first step to leading is actually self-leadership. So that was something that really opened my mind, and I had to confront a lot of things, and I never really confront a lot of things about myself. And I never thought that I would be, you know, going through that introspective journey in a master's module, or I mean in the master's program. And so that was the module that I felt that I grew a lot, and I felt that I really there's like a paradigm shift about myself. The only thing that was preventing me from growing or going to where I wanted to be was me. I mean, we read about this in like motivational quotes as we scroll through Instagram, right? But when it really happens to you, it's like, wow. And then secondly, well, about the why. So the first startup that I worked with, they had a really good reason as to what problems they were solving, but they had some issues with like the business model. And then the second startup that I worked with had a really really good, a lot of money, but the lack of why was very obvious. And I didn't realize all this until I sat through Hyper Islands classes, and I realized, like, yeah, all these startups and then a lot of even like incumbent businesses, as I worked and partnered with them, they wanted to come out with innovative solutions even within their businesses. But when we question, like, actually, why are you doing this, or what is the reason for this, and they have no answer for that, and soon after they would just disappear. So I realized that spending time in that first section of understanding why something is being proposed or worked on is really really important before even like thinking about a business model or stuff like that. Yeah.
I love that you said, Satya, you open Instagram and it's full of those like phrases too. So like, you can do everything you want, like just believe on your power, whatever. Reading stuff is not really learning. Like, you can think that just by watching a YouTube video, you might learn about leadership, but you need to experience it. Like, you need to experience having a bad boss. Like I think Miguel was talking about his father. I also had a father which wasn't like the best. It was a very like bossy father, like you experience that type of leadership, and then you experience another type of leadership, and then you experience a different way of working together. I think that's what's very powerful, is the experiences that you have. June, would you like to share?
The big takeaway from Hyper Island, there are two of them. One, I would say how to work with a team, and it cascades back to introspective. What are the limits that I can go? What are the boundaries that I can push? And I've also acquired some soft skills along the way. So in terms of working with the team members, I realized that we all have our different traits, we all have our different characteristics, but it's important that we try not just to find the balance point or the middle ground, but also to empathetic towards the point of view of others so that we can work together seamlessly. Now, I come to say the second part, which is introspective. I realized that now whenever I did something, I would pay attention to what I've done well and what I could have done better. And I also recognize clearly what are my strengths as well as my weaknesses. So this soft skills has been very helpful in my work. And I do credit them to the curriculum that I've been through at Hyper Island.
Nice. That's good. Thank you, June, for sharing that. Thank you, everyone, for opening up.
But if I may just add one more, that I've realized, I've learned in the last 9 months, it's to realize that complexity exists everywhere, and to realize that complexity is not something to be intimidated with and to shy away from. So originally, I was most intimidated by design thinking, that module, because some of my office mates had used it and I couldn't understand it. But now that I've gone through it, I've realized that I've used it the second time this year, um, to understand the complexity of the work I have from one place to another. And I think that discipline that we learned from design thinking, of getting all of those inputs, putting them on paper, trying to decipher what it all means, and trusting the process, that although you can get lost in the complexity, somehow in the process you'll make sense of it, and then you can present it to other people if that is in fact what they're looking for, and then align. And if it's not, then you go through the process again. But I realized that, wow, in this complex world, we now have this process of embracing the complexity, making sense of it, and making it relevant to move forward with. So that's another thing that I wanted to share.
And for the ones who are not familiar, like the master's program at Hyper has 6 modules, 6, let's say, core experiences. That's how we call it. You come basically 6 times throughout the program to have classes with us. Like it's a normally 3 days, 4 days experience, depending on the module. And those modules, they are elements that are driving the corporate world today, right? They're parts of the corporate world that are important for people to thrive, right? And they're different elements. So Miguel has mentioned the module on design thinking, where we discuss the process of design thinking, and we also have a critical view on it as well, right? Like, because I think there is also all sides of the coin, like how do we implement that? How do we learn? What can we learn from that? Anyone has any like kind of preferred module that you like the most, or something that for you make the biggest, I guess, was the most surprising one?
So I think the module that really surprised me is the Way Week, the first module. It kind of set the tone for the whole cohort. I mean, the thing is that 80 of us, and there's a challenge that, you know, all of us, because of the pandemic, and then we don't really get to see each other. But I was just sharing with my course mate, right? I have never felt so connected to people, and you know, genuine like people, even through virtual way. I think the whole Way Week was so well designed. And I mean, it's like, yes, that is moment that I thought like, oh, these questions, you think people will ask? And then I just like one by one, like people open up, and it's like, whoa, it's like these are real people, you know. It's not like, you know, classmate, you know, like, because I've been to you know, a lot of courses and stuff like that, and I can see that this whole, you know, the when people open up, and then everybody open up, and it kind of set the whole tone of the whole master, you know, this master course. And it's, I think if people that want to really experience something that's totally different from, you know, like what they expected, and this is really like the course to go for. I would say the Way Week is the most surprising one.
You can see the effect, right? Because now we're already at the end of all the learning experience, all the modules, the thought section of our master's program. So we can see the effect, right? Because everyone opened up in the first or like minus one module, right? During that week, right?
Yeah.
So when we are broken up into groups, we can see that everyone's really like sharing, and you see that we learn more when everyone's really open to share, right? Yeah, it was very unexpected.
Yeah.
This like the whole way it was designed, because there were so many like vulnerabilities, right, that people were like sharing. And I remember like so many stories that made me cry. Even like sharing my story, I cried. And and to feel that comfortable at the beginning of this experience, it's just like, you know, what else can we do along the whole journey? And I remember like organizing the virtual party, right?
Wow.
And then like me, Junie and I, we were doing the admin of like organizing the breakout rooms, and we both of us were like, huh, how to do this? No one taught us how to do this, and like we're like, okay, but never mind, we just lean into it, right? And like we figured out how to open breakout rooms and organize everyone. It was really interesting. And we organized it in what, 2 hours or what?
And that's the funny part, right? Like if you talk about it today, in fact, like I didn't know how to open a breakout room. It sounds like a child, right? Like it sounds like, oh my God, I was so how like I didn't know how to do something that, if you think about it, 8 months later, it's so basic. Everyone should know how to do that, right? Like if you lead digitally, that's a minimum, right? Of knowing how to use the platform and knowing how to, organize your teams. But then we don't reflect that actually just 8 months ago, and I'm talking to myself also. For me, it was 2 years ago, but it was the same sensation. Like how did I learn how to use this technology? And I work with technology, right? So that's what is very interesting about learning it, right? Like, is that what's my current thing that I don't know that in a year from now will be like, oh my God, everyone knows that. How come you don't know? Like what's that thing? And throughout the program, right? Like we, of course, for the previous crew, the challenge was to use Zoom, but maybe for this crew would be a different challenge because the world is changing and the program needs to change and the challenges will change according to the world. And I think that's what, to me, is very powerful about this program. I mean, reflecting, you did the program 5 years ago. I today facilitate the program, and I look at the program I facilitate today. I'm like, wow, I wish I have this one because mine was designed for 2015, right? Which was a different world than today. So the program keeps changing and keeps evolving, and I think that's the interesting element of it that I really admire Hyper Island for doing that over and over, year by year. Anyone else has a surprising module? Maybe Miguel?
I never realized what some people would call soft skills would be so important. So I practice it now. Even one of the things I've learned is basically the check-in, where you spend a few minutes just to recognize people, recognize who they are, especially in a virtual, what do you call this, in a virtual setting, so that people are at ease and are comfortable to share. And in a way, it's establishing a safe space so that work can come in easy. So every Monday, I still have, even if it's physical space, just a check-in. And sometimes though the check-in becomes so fun that it has last so long. So I've only been with my team since January 3, and it feels like I've known them all my life.
Also at the start of the year, I just joined a new company and it's pure remote work. So I've never met my team before. And I realized when we go into the meeting, it was more of like, so what do you do? And I felt that over the few weeks when they did that, if there was like a few tension and there's this disconnection. So what I did was I took that maybe 10 minutes to talk to my team like before, like, hey, how was it? How was your weekend? Like, what do you have for lunch? So this checking in makes you feel that you're part of this is connection from in a remote sense that you realize it was so important because when you're in physical, you see them every day, you go out for lunch, and then when you come to a meeting, you go straight jump into the meeting. But in terms of remote, it's just like you don't see them at all. Yeah. So the lessons from the way week, and I think in all of the modules when we have to work with different teammates, we have to start with teaming. So I think that is also like one of the biggest surprise that how important it is to feel that connection, even though it's remote work or it's physical work or whatever, but that space to create connection, that's so important.
How would you see, let's say, someone that is in a changing process, right? Like that doesn't know, like if I'm happy with my job or, if I'm happy with my current career, or how can you use the power of the masters to push your transformation or your growth to a different direction than you are today. So anyone has any experience with that?
I have always wanted to come to Hyper Island ever since when I stepped foot in Singapore. So 10 years ago, I think the key thing about the school itself, I think, is the people. I feel that the energy is when like when you are working and going through the daily daily routine and things like that, you will feel like something in you die a little bit every single day. I mean, it's not that I don't love my life, I think the thing is that sometimes you need to kind of put yourself in an environment where that is so dynamic. The people there are just, you just, when you actually step foot into Hyper Island, you can sense the energy is so different. I mean, it's just like you're going to a bunch of, it's like an X-Men, not saying that it's not like Crew X, right? It's like a bunch of X-Men school and everybody is just so different. And I think the thing about it is, it's like the professor, Professional Jonathan, like when I first met him 10 years ago, it was like, wow, I really want to learn from him. So I mean, the thing is, of course, throughout the 10 years, there's a lot of things that happen. And then eventually I managed to land on this course. I am like, it is, although I expected something good, but this is beyond good. So, and it's like, I found my tribe, like the whole Crew X folks are just so amazing. Like, and of course, like Rome, Mari, Pichi, all of you are just so amazing. I never thought that I can achieve certain things, and it's like, it's crazy. Like 2 days, you come up with something, and it's like, it's impossible, but we can do it. It's just like, it gives you, it doesn't just throw you the knowledge, but it teaches you how to learn.
What we hear all the time is people saying, oh, I don't know if I will have time because I have work, and then I have my kids, and then I have my friends, and I want to travel, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And like, I'm like, you're not understanding that these days that you're taking off, they're not going to be like you in front of it's not work. It's not work. Like, you don't have a boss, you don't have a client, you don't have your family, you don't have anything. It's just, actually, it's the opposite of it. You're actually taking time off to come to an experience that will recharge you, so you can go back to those places and stronger and better, and maybe, like you said, with a different energy, because you kind of like, wow, like, world could be different.
I think that we're a very lucky crew. In that we took this course at the time of the pandemic, where you get to really question, is this the future that I want? Is this the career that I want? What can I do to change things? And while all of this was happening around us in the pandemic, while maybe some of us were questioning our careers, or maybe some of us were in no careers, we took, I think a lot of us took a risk by studying, or being pressured by a boss to study. And or some of us, we had to pay, and I've had to invest, what would have been savings. And it's not cheap. But at a time when the world was unstable. And yet I think that was a great decision, because I now have a way to navigate the world with a lot more understanding and more confidence to move forward. So I think we've had what they call as magnifier in the pandemic. We've learned in a time of uncertainty, we took the risk, we got lessons, we got to build relationships, and we got to apply it when it's so important to reinvent.
So there's also this misunderstanding that the Hyper Island Masters program, because it's digital, it's focused towards tech people, right? We have the idea that technology is just programming and digital is all about, running softwares. So what kind of advice would you give, maybe Fatin, let me put you on spot. What kind of advice would you give for someone that doesn't come from a technology background, and how do you see technology actually after the program?
The most dreaded module was intelligent machines for myself. It was like the hardest module, because I realized I was scared of it. I was scared of technology because I was unaware of it. Especially it was like when we talk about fintech, we talk about AI, we talk about machine learning. In my head, I'm just like, I don't know all of this. I really don't know. Like, don't ask me anything. But as we delve deeper, we realize it is the humans that are involved in this. Who creates this? What is this for? What is the ethics of it? Like Miguel was talking about ethics, right? What is the ethics of this data, this technology that we are using? The people that who buy them, what were behind their head? What were their motivations? What were the like the dark patterns? All of these are all based on humans' behavior. So after I realized that these technology are just tools for human problems, I was able to breathe a little bit more because I was just like, oh yeah, people, I am people, right? So we are managing people. Okay, so people, the tech behind the people. So like when you ground yourself there, it's like it makes a lot of sense that you don't see tech as just tech. It is a huge web of interconnectivity of how people use it, why people are advocating it, why are the drivers of technology, what is behind those drivers and all these things. Because I saw this quote and it talks about how technology is the solution, but what is the problem? And it resonated a lot with me because what are we solving actually? And do we really need tech to solve it? Or are we using it as like a fancy mumbo jumbo just to make ourselves look good? But there are all these unintended consequences. So it's just look at it in a more different way. Yeah, so that's kind of my take.
I don't think there's anyone here with a tech background. Is there anyone here with a tech? No, right? We're all working for some of you.
I can offer a perspective from
Please, Safia.
I'm not I work in a non-technical role in tech startups. So one startup that I worked with previously was a blockchain crypto startup. And the current one that I'm working with is a software that works with AI and machine learning. So it's really good to understand these technologies so that you can kind of orientate and position, and be more value to the organizations, and also really question, like, again, like what Fatin, that quote that she was sharing, right? We have all this tech, but what is the problem? So my previous mindset was like, okay, I'm gonna just work for like very high tech companies, or like companies that work with the latest tech, because then I'll be like the most relevant worker or something like that. I had that mindset. But then I realized, like, working with on the radical perspective module, our client was from an industry that's very old. Like, they've been around for ages, and they also need to use tech. They need to understand how to use tech. And I never realized that an old industry, with that kind of mindset, there'll be so much value that someone can bring to that industry just by understanding that industry and the tools that can be used to improve. And that was like, wow, I didn't see it that way.
We all
then
want
my mind open.
we all want to work for the Amazons and the Googles and the Facebooks, but then we realize that actually they might be the one that need us the least, right? Because they're already leading the thing,
Yes,
right?
correct.
And you have a bunch of small businesses and mid-sized, even big companies who work on all different types of industries, from producing airplanes up to managing an airport, that they need technology. And if you go to countries like in the region, starts in the Philippines, Malaysia, even Thailand, you see that there's a lot of work to be done. Maybe, yes.
Sorry, if I may
Please,
just
Miguel.
add on the tech. Your previous question was how
Yes.
we use tech.
Yes.
I always pretended to know tech, but deep down inside was afraid of tech. And the fear was deep into basically relevance. Because I might be one of the older students in crew 10. I'm 53 next week.
Oh, wow.
While
It looks much less.
Happy
Congratulations.
birthday, Deva!
Happy birthday.
see, dementia. I'm not remembering.
Dementia.
But but I'm not a digital native. I'd say I'm a digital lagger, or trying to catch up. So I've always had this fear. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna become old furniture that will be thrown away. And yet, through the last year plus the last 9 months also, um, transformation has happened. And maybe to fast forward, I was talking to one of my bosses yesterday who's in her 30s, and she's known to be driving the tech of of our company. And she had one sentence that made me, whoa, did she just say that? She said, you should get into the details of this because you're more digital than most of us here, including. It's like, for me, are you serious about what you're saying? A perception and stuff. But for me, it's that realization from fearful to proud. And yet I also know I have to be grounded. That's one statement from one boss. But I also know that tech will continue to develop. And one of my fears is, after this module, how do I keep up learning? And that's why I like these sessions, because it keeps me onto the hyper island community with the various activities that continues to get me challenged. Also, I feel younger because when I talk to all these young people, and then I can be understood. I feel it. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of Hyper Island. I think it doesn't matter which age you are and your position. Also, you could be as senior as Miguel and as junior as, like as a person who's just starting their career, maybe first or second job in their career. And you will realize we're all ignorance together, right? On this journey. Like, there is not really a person who knows more than any other person. You can have a TikToker that understands better technology than a CEO of a social media company, right? Because the guy's there day to day experiencing what does it mean to be a social media influencer, while the boss on top is probably listening to research and focus groups about this instead of experiencing it. So yeah, and maybe a last question. You mentioned fear, Miguel, and I think one issue that we have at Hyper Island, I think there is that issue of trust. And let's be very honest, like, we all have that issue with anything that you put your money in, right? Like, can I trust Hyper Island? Can I trust? I never heard of them. A lot of us, we know we're very big in Europe, but in Asia, we're just like a baby, growing baby, So what would you say for someone who is insecure to join Hyper Island, or is not so sure about joining Hyper Island?
Yeah, I think for me, it's more of like that fear that you have of others is a mirror of the fear you have on yourself. So it is about whether or not do you want to conquer that fear for yourself. And to conquer that fear, that first step is you to embark on any journey. I mean, to me, Hyper it's a travel bug in your mind. It's a travel destination of your mind. You're traveling to different knowledge destinations that you never knew before. You're meeting different people, different cultures, work culture, that sort. It's traveling. So to me, Hyper was just like if you love traveling, you would love traveling in Hyper, because you're traveling with different people. You're in the same place, but your mind is like everywhere. It's amazing. So that's like, yeah, man.
If I may add to what Fatin said, for me, it is a journey. And what Hyper Island has given me is a new navigational system that already downloads some information, but it also shows the way. And with co-travelers, you get to discover more, but you also get to learn that that we're all in the same boat. The world is just so complicated. And here's a navigational system that will help you, but you still have to do it. And it helps to travel with people who are just as curious, who don't want to stay put and then just deny the world, but want to continue to learn. So it's a great navigational system that we're armed with, but we have to continue to update.
Anyone else has any tip?
I wanna add something. I think okay, similar to Qaida, right? I heard about Hyper Island for some time, maybe like 6 years back, and I had a senior who attended one of the short classes, and from there I kind of had the vibe that, you know, Hyper Island has this methodology that I really liked. You know, when I go to the landing page, I guess the website at that time when I was considering whether to take this master's program, it might be a bit vague. It might be a bit, you can't really put your words into, like, there's no set learning deliverable. Like, you know, most of Singaporeans, we are really used to this very set learning deliverables. And not to say that there are no learning deliverables, but there's some vague ambiguity that you kind of have to be comfortable with. But you know, at the end, you know where it will take you. As in, when I entered the program, I know that coming out of it, I'll have a different set of lenses, or I'll have a mindset shift. I don't really know how my mind will be shifted, or, you know, how it will change, but I know it will be changed, and I trust Hyper Island to take me there. And that was what made me sign up and trust this whole thing.
I would say if someone is interested to go to Hyper Island to know about the courses, especially the master's program, go for the open house. Don't hesitate. Ask questions. Ask any questions that you have within you. And I believe the facilitators and the alumni who will be at the open house will be more than happy to share their experience with you. Go and ask. Go for the open house. Ask many questions. Ask as much as you want so that you get the idea what it will be like. But I can tell you the process is going to be a little bit scary, but I would say it's fun, enriching, and importantly, unforgettable.
Nice. Which is the point of learning, right? Otherwise, if you forget next month what you just learned, why did you spend all this time and all this money to learn something, right? So, well, thank you so much for taking the time and being here. For everyone who's watching this video, thanks for watching. I mean, this whole chit chat that we had here, I hope you learned something out of it. Crew X, I really, really like hanging out with you guys. I learned so much just by chatting with you today. It's just so energizing to have your presence. I can sense that this is such a great learning journey for you. I know you're not at the end yet. The worst is yet to come. So
Give us some tips, Ron.
The
the
best.
worst is yet to come. If you want to join Hyper Island, you're welcome to join us. Just check our website, hyperisland.asia. You have all the details there, the brochure, the price, the calendar, so you can plan your holidays in advance. The sign-up process ends pretty soon, actually, just in a few weeks from now. So if you want to make this decision or not, this is the time. Thank you all, and I see you next time.